Patterson, and the member for Canberra has the call.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. And it's a privilege to have been here for the member for Patterson's very eloquent and spot-on words about the public service and the professionalism and drive of those people who, in their work, seek to serve the public of Australia, which is what obviously the public service is about, and not enough is said about the incredibly important work and not enough respect has been given to this in recent times. So, and I rise today also to speak in support of this Public Service Amendment Bill 2023. The bill represents an important step towards implementing the government's Australian public service reform agenda, which is aimed at ensuring that the APS embodies integrity, puts people and business at the centre of policy and services, is a model employer and has the capability to fulfil its responsibilities effectively. The APS reform agenda is informed by the recommendations of the 2019 report of the Independent Review of the APS led by David Thodey. This comprehensive review provided valuable insights into the strengths and challenges of our public service, and the government is committed to implementing the necessary reforms to address these issues. And I want to recognise the work of the Minister for the Australian Public Service, Senator Gallagher, and the work that she has put into this reform agenda and on this legislation. And I'd also like to thank the public servants themselves who have put the work into preparing this legislation. I'm very proud to be part of a government that actually has an APS reform agenda, a government that respects the Australian public service. And this should not be something novel, but after the last 10 years, the absolute disregard that we saw for the public service and their critical role in our democracy, in the delivery of services to Australians, and in providing the advice that shapes the policies that benefit the lives of all Australians and impact the lives of all Australians. It was really missing under the former government. And as the member for Canberra, around 27% of my constituents are actually employed in the Australian public service, and I am incredibly proud to represent these hard-working, dedicated people as my constituents in this place, and I will always stand up for the public service, their important role and the individuals that make it up and the work that they do. As I've talked about before in this place, I saw this in my father's career in the public service, who really instilled in me the values of professionalism, of the importance of frank and fearless advice, of the public service serving the government of the day and not being politicised. And I saw how incredibly hard he worked in serving the various governments that he served in his career. And I also saw this as an official at the Commonwealth Treasury, where I worked, with some of the most inspiring, dedicated, intelligent people that I have ever had the privilege to work with. And working on budgets, if there's ever any question of how hard-working the public service is, that process, which we have just recently been through, is a mammoth effort for people from a range of departments. Not only, but probably in the large part, the Treasury and the Department of Finance put incredible hours and work into that. And I want to thank those public servants again for the work that they put into that, but into each and every policy and piece of legislation that we deal with in this place. And I also see that dedication and professionalism in the public servants that we work with in this building every day, who enable this parliament to run. Essentially enabling our democracy to function. And we see the people who run the secretariats of parliamentary committees and the incredible quality work that they put in. And I want to thank the secretariats that I work with on the committees that I'm in for the incredible work that they do, really quality advice that they give us, and also bringing together a range of issues and stakeholders to participate in those committee processes. It's another really important mechanism of our democracy that couldn't run without public servants, and obviously incredibly important that those people do, as the member for Patterson was saying, people join the public service because they do care about outcomes for Australia and the world. They care about outcomes for our environment. They care about outcomes in health, in all this range of policy areas. And they do it because they want to see improvements in those areas, and that's what drives them. And I just, it should be a profession that is respected and upheld, and particularly by people in this place who see it firsthand, and ministers who deal with the public service on a daily basis. And so it was very disappointing under the previous government to see this disregard for the public service, and it's closely tied in with Canberra bashing. Like, let's not deny that is a big part of it. It's bashing on our city and our public service and perpetuating myths about, big government being, slow to get things done, and that it's an easy job, and all of the things that we all hear too much of. It is a very important job that people do, and they work very hard and deserve our utmost respect. So, as I say, I will always, as long as I am in this place, be incredibly proud to represent so many Australian public service employees in my electorate. So, as I've said, the work of the APS is a solid foundation that we use to build the future prosperity of the nation. And it's all done by hard-working Australians who are too often unfairly maligned in this place by those opposite. And we saw a prime example just a couple of weeks ago of the opposition's contempt for the public service, where in budget estimates, where is, again, another important mechanism of our democracy, where questions can be asked of public servants about the budget. You would have thought that the opposition would have some serious questions about the budget, but we saw a range of ridiculous lines of questioning, and I won't go into all of them, but one that really stood out was when a very senior public servant was criticised for not wearing a tie and was asked about that. And I think, while it's sort of in one sense laughable, it does speak to a much deeper disrespect and disregard for the important work that these people do, and the important role of the public service, and the way that role in itself should be respected. But for the last decade, under the previous government, we saw huge amounts of outsourcing, we saw arbitrary employment caps designed for political point scoring, we saw wage freezes, and we saw speeches by the former Prime Minister, the member for Cook, which completely misrepresented the purpose and mission of the APS. Who can forget the Christmas social media video from the member for New England declaring that he was sick of the government being in his life, which is an interesting comment coming from someone who's sought to be a member of Parliament, given that is the role of this place, to form governments and deliver the services and the laws and the policies that affect everyone each and every day. I would have thought that was probably a driving reason for most people to be in here, is to see a government make good policies, but then you have people saying that they want the government out of their life. But this didn't stop him from forcibly relocating the Australian Pesticides and Veterinary Medicines Authority to Armidale in his electorate.
Order.
And
sorry, just point of order.
It's just directing the member back to the bill itself rather than comments
sure
on members in the House.
The member for Canberra will continue her contribution relevant to the bill at hand. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I think it was pretty relevant.
Yeah.
Also, the former Prime Minister used a speech at the Institute of Public Administration to claim that only those who have put their name on a ballot can truly understand the significance of accountability. Again, I think really misrepresenting the role of the public service, and this from someone who secretly swore himself into multiple ministries. So I'm proud that with the formation of our government, the neglect of the APS has ended, and we will never treat public servants or the expertise they provide the way that those now in opposition did, and we will always respect and take account of their frank and fearless advice. Integrity is a cornerstone of the Labor government's APS reform agenda. Recent events, such as the Robodebt Royal Commission and revelations about the role of consultancies in light of the PwC scandal have highlighted the need to strengthen integrity measures within the public service. And this bill sets the foundation for broader reforms by introducing important new provisions. These provisions lay the groundwork for future legislation that will specifically target integrity concerns. One of the key measures of this bill is the addition of a new APS value of stewardship, which underlines the importance of building capability and institutional knowledge within the APS, and which all APS employees must uphold. Stewardship will be defined as the APS builds capability and institutional knowledge and supports the public interest now and into the future by understanding the long-term impacts of what it does. This value emphasises the importance of long-term planning and considering the broader consequences of APS actions. It is so vital that we recognise the long-term impacts of the work done by the APS, and this reinforces the role of APS employees in serving successive governments, the Parliament and the Australian public. It complements the stewardship duties of secretaries, the Secretaries Board and the Commissioner. The bill also introduces measures to enhance the work environment within the APS. It requires agency heads to create an environment that enables decisions to be made by APS employees at the lowest appropriate classification. This empowers employees and fosters a culture of accountability and effective decision-making throughout the service. And by reducing unnecessary hierarchy and empowering APS employees, this provision will ensure efficient decision-making processes and a more agile and responsive APS. Furthermore, the bill empowers the APS Commissioner and the Secretary of the Department of the Prime Minister and Cabinet to conduct periodic capability reviews of departments and key agencies. These reviews will become a 5-yearly requirement for each department of State, Services Australia and the Australian Taxation Office. The reviews will assess organisational strength and areas for development, with reports and action plans responding to the findings required to be publicly released. This will enable continuous improvement within agencies and ensure transparency in their performance. Transparency and accountability are crucial in building public trust. That is why the bill includes provisions that require the Secretaries Board to request and publish regular long-term insights reports, which will provide information about medium-term and long-term trends, risks and opportunities affecting Australia. Additionally, agencies will be required to publish their annual APS employee census results along with action plans that address the findings. This fosters a culture of continuous improvement and ensures that the APS listens to and addresses the thoughts, concerns and ideas of its employees. Extensive consultation has been conducted throughout the development of the bill, and a public consultation paper was released on the 3rd of May, followed by an exposure draft and explanatory memorandum. As I said, this bill is an important part of a broader agenda for reforming the APS. And part of that is a sign that our government takes its role seriously and respects the people that work within the Australian public service. I'm very proud to be part of a government that does this. It is critically important, and public servants do the work that, perhaps is not seen every day but is impacting the things that each and every Australian benefits from every day. Keeping us safe, delivering services, providing the advice that creates the policies that will benefit all Australians. Even our interactions with other countries around the world, our security, our defence. Public servants, play an incredibly important role each and every day, and I take this opportunity to again thank them for all that they do, and to again thank all the public servants, particularly in this building, that support the Parliament to run every day. I commend the bill to the House.
I thank the member for Canberra for her contribution.